full the full curriculum in an email to all of us. She's going to be 10 minutes late. I just spotted that. So we can wait for her, or we can keep going. I don't know. It's up to you, Mayor. Brandy.
There's Martha. Are you guys all okay with me recording?
Yeah, I am.
Nicole, are you okay with me recording?
Yep, okay with me.
Martha, are you okay with me recording?
Sorry. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So Nicole, you have two people joining you, James Kelly and Jaden. And Dominic, right? Do OSHA. So we now have 4
James
instructors.
Kelly. Why does that name sound familiar?
He's manufacturing. According to he's going to be the Tuesday instructor for intro to manufacturing.
Oh, that's great news.
Yep. And then when he finishes up his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes, then Dominic takes over with OSHA in the middle of May.
Excellent. That sounds great.
And Jaden, I guess that's tutoring. Tutoring will happen on Thursdays with Jaden.
Brandy, did you want to wait for Franca, or do you want to move ahead? How do you want to proceed?
Like, we were already talking about the curriculum
Sorry,
as the first item. No, I mean, it makes sense to review that, but we can get started. The first question on there is, what went well?
Well, I think we had
having Nicole as the main instructor was really great. It seemed like the participants really connected with her, and when I was there for the interview night, it seemed like they were really well prepared for the interviews.
Agree.
And having worked with a number of people who don't have experience with interviewing, and even their own self-confidence, to hear that everybody went into interviewing without major trepidation. I mean, I'm sure there were nerves, but nonetheless they were prepared. That also sends for that first cohort, Nicole. So thank you. The message to those businesses that the future people coming to them are going to be people that are ready to have an interview, to think about the world of work. So kudos to you, girl. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry, ladies. The school bus was running late today, which means it's pushed my time at the office back. So I apologize for being mobile at the moment, but I'm all ears.
No problem, Nicole.
we can all relate.
Mm-hmm.
On your side, with everything with radar, did anything go well with the program, Summer?
Yeah, I think I can kind of second that it was really helpful to have Nicole as the instructor, because Nicole and I work very closely in general. So if there was ever an immediate need in class, it was very easy to have open communication with her and know if there was something that we needed to provide, like supportive services, or just have communication with the participants. So again, it was just really helpful to have Nicole as the instructor.
Thank you, Summer. I appreciate that.
I want to give a plug for MACNY, and because we don't have the same thing going on. But Matt, thank you, Colleen and Yawa, for the way in which you pulled the businesses together. I mean, not if we didn't have that connection in the Mohawk Valley through you guys, that's 50% of what's making this project viable, and the ability to actually have it. So I want to thank you for the extra efforts, because I know that There is, and there's only two of you. So, I mean, in the scheme of things, trying to pull this all together in that area, and it's a very large corridor. So, I just want to put that plug in there. So since it's being recorded too, I mean, it makes no, but for the record, I mean, this is an initiative that is getting hype. And I'm pleased and proud to be part of that MACNY side of things while we're working on this. So thank you for giving a rehab girl a new vision, a new look at things. So I appreciate it.
I like that all the students were OSHA 10 certified. You know, every single one of them, that was a huge win, I thought.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They certainly didn't know what OSHA 10 was before they started the class.
Who OSHA was, period.
Yeah.
Right?
And they all got resumes built, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
Every single one of them interviewed, and then they all, well, how many of them? 3 went on, did a fast track program.
Yes, 3 of them attended the fast track program that Radar also sponsored.
Okay, so there's the question. Summer, how do we get radar across the state? Can we clone Alice? I mean, there's new money coming out, right? I mean, I wonder if there's a way to encourage all the other workforce centers to do what you do.
I know. We are working on getting Schenectady County added to our outreach, which will be nice because we have a lot of really wonderful partners out there that to be able to offer this to would be wonderful. I don't know if we'll be able to get further than that, but if there's workforce development boards in other areas that are willing to apply for this grant, it would make it a lot easier to have that collaboration. So I'd like to see that happen in other areas.
Do you have a sense of calendar when the next round of funding is coming out?
No, I haven't heard anything on my end or from Alice, but usually the only thing that I'll hear is if we have an opportunity to reapply, which
Yeah.
would usually come in the last year of the grant. We would either reapply or we'd ask for a no cost extension.
Which is what year?
2026.
2020. Okay, because Martha, maybe you and I can poke around and
Yeah.
see if there's on a national level, if there's a possibility, right? Because Radar's is a federal, right? Not a
Yes.
state.
Federal.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe between you and I, we can poke around and see.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing I really appreciated was on this project, we were able to combine funding sources. So
Mhm.
both SUNY and Radar and the workforce. And so we were really able to braid funding really well, which I think is a huge asset.
Definitely. Yeah, SUNY has been just amazing to work with, especially when it comes to combining funding. We've found our groove, and it's been so nice to be able to support so many projects and so many individuals that are working towards those career goals. So they've been wonderful.
Have you guys considered, I'm going off track, so push me back, Brandy, if I go too far. Have you guys considered, they're calling for presentations for NIATEP? I know I posed it to Mary Lee about our project, but I'm wondering if, since many people that go to the youth program are from the workforce boards, if Radar hasn't ever presented about what you do and how it benefits young adults to the age of 24, maybe this is a moment to brag a little, but also promote that when it comes out. So.
Yeah, I'm always open to sharing information about some of the successes that we've had, and just how wonderful Radar has been. So any opportunity to do that, I'd be down.
So maybe Brandy, Marilee, that's the way to, if you guys want to go for it. I don't know if we'll get, but we go in with partners from the workforce side, then we've got to, forgive me, I mean, NITEP is selective on purpose because lots of people want to present. So, but if we go in with the full partnership, not just, supporting people who have disabilities to get to the world of apprenticeship, it might be a better pick. We'll have a better shot. So.
Is there a concern at all about outcomes so far? when it comes to presenting.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Well, they'll be selective, but I'm stacking the deck, Colleen, by asking Summer from from Herkimer to do it. That's all. I think that might be beneficial.
As far as like specific to radar, we have a lot of outcomes already. We've met the majority of our numbers just within the first 2 years of the grant. So
Yeah.
anything that can piggyback off of that to show like how we're kind of using that as momentum to do more.
So,
That's a
so
great
yeah, so it's
idea.
right. So instead of the presentation being about A2A and others are the demonstration of the outcomes of the value of radar.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole idea is that we're creating sustainable programs. So if there's a possibility that radar isn't around anymore, ideally these programs would last past radar's existence. So how are we going to continue this success even if radar isn't here? And so some of these programs becoming direct entry programs and having more involvement from SUNY and other avenues, I think would be a great example of that.
So Summer, have you seen the call for presentations?
No.
All right, I will forward it to you, and maybe if everybody else is cool, down for it, maybe you and I could think quickly, because the deadline's coming up, to get something in, and we'll run it by everybody, and then but you have to run it by Alice too, obviously, to make sure that she's down for it. So I'll get that off to you when I finish this meeting. So
Okay.
Alice always likes to have her programs highlighted.
She does.
well, you guys do it well, and you're in a lot of counties, so it's not a bad thing. And if there's a possibility for more funding to come to the state related to this initiative, the governor is also talking. I mean, she has an executive order out, Executive Order 31, that calls for the state as a model employer, which means creating more access. And it specifically talks about youth. It talks about adults with disabilities. So that's the whole premise behind it. So we could certainly spin it with the direction of that kind of conversation in there, as long as Alice is comfortable with it.
Yeah,
So.
definitely.
Okay.
Any other pieces that went well?
I wanted to ask Nicole directly. What do you think went well in the project?
I think that overall, the time that we spent together was very beneficial. It really created a sense of community, a sense of teams. I think by the end of it, because they had that community that they had built within the classroom, it empowered them more to enroll themselves in the radar fast track program with MVCC. So I think that that was really beneficial for them to like create these friendships that support them. And obviously confidence was foundational. Yes, we're doing job skills. Yes, we're doing resumes. But a lot of it really was confidence building. That was really important. Obviously, I think having, the disability resource coordination piece is crucial because that was probably the biggest, to be quite frank, probably the biggest challenge was to make sure that all agencies were aware of what was going on. Those individuals that were working with Access VR, those case managers wanted to be 100% in the know because they have these vocational plans that they need to ensure that their clients are aligning with. So I think as far as probably one of the challenges, it was just ensuring that we're on the same page with VR. And then challenge, I suppose, would be the positions that were available at the end of the program. But overall, they're all, Mark has got a tentative offer to DFAS. Rodney's still working. Austin has enrolled himself at MVCC. Nate is coming today to the Department of Labor. We're going to walk the job fair together. So there's still a lot of involvement with the students, even beyond the end of the class, which is really great. And they get that because of the disability resource coordination.
Nicole, did you feel like the tutor was helpful, having a tutor available?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because sometimes they are very comfortable asking questions. Very comfortable asking questions, but still there's some subjects that they just like needed extra time on, or maybe they needed to have that subject kind of gone over one more time. Jaden, for the most part, I think he had relatively good attendance for tutoring. Of course, when it's optional, it's optional. But you know, I think he had a few regulars that were taking advantage of his services, and that's really great to hear. And I think it also depends on, you know, the needs of the students. If they are kind of struggling more, they're definitely going to benefit from the tutoring session. So I think it's on a case by case basis, but overall, I do think it's a foundationally great thing to offer as part of the program.
Hi, Veronica.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry I'm late, guys.
You're okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. So we just started a little bit with talking about the things that are going well. Colleen was able to let us know that the application for direct entry has been submitted based off the updated curriculum that you just emailed out to us. So thank you for that. Thank you both. And so far we're pretty much all echoing that mostly what went well was having Nicole as an instructor. It was a really great win for the project, for the class. Were you? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were saying something because you're muted.
No,
But,
we all agree. We all agree
Okay,
on that.
yes, yes, and very grateful to have you moving forward with us into the next cohort for sure. Having Radar, having having Summer and the caseworkers with Radar being able to provide that supplement, not only funding for the course, but also for the stipend for the student participants, and then the additional supplement, you know, services like transportation supports and everything else that they needed. We're very grateful for having MACNY as a partner, and what went well was being able to tap into Colleen's resources with getting the businesses on site for that interview day. Was a win. The students coming out of the class with OSHA 10 and ready to go resume and increased confidence with being able to interview was all a win. And then even having 3 of the 7 students move forward with fast track programs, also sponsored by Radar through MVCC, was great. We started talking a little bit about interest and presentations for NAIATAP and being able to really highlight Radar as, you know, that umbrella of support that is helping to build programs that are meant to be sustainable within our communities. So that was cool. I'm trying to give you a quick synopsis. And then Nicole started our transition for us on some of the challenges. So definitely a benefit with having her in that DRC role to be able to support the coordination that was needed for nearly every student, depending on their individual situations, especially when it came to BR and having continued communication with case managers to make sure that, you know, all of the pieces were being met. So another challenge was the available positions for the students within the interview days. So great businesses there. Willingness to interview folks was awesome, but us having, you know, a little information about students wanting part-time positions, but then the companies really only having full-time positions was kind of a disconnect that moving forward, we definitely want to look at differently, even with helping companies to see the benefits of customizing positions. So now that you're here, Franca, what do you believe went well?
Beyond that,
There we go. That mute button just hides on me.
Mhm.
All right. So I really sincerely appreciated the training that was done at the beginning. Both Nicole and Jaden that were able to participate in it. It was wonderful.
I
But
love that.
Yeah, in addition to that, the faculty were just thrilled. So thank you for that. That was an added bonus in my opinion. I do think that having that, the intimacy, Brandy, of you being involved is very good for this program. And I think that that's such an added bonus that we have to figure out how to if not you, because I understand this grant will end one day, how to have that intimate, I don't want to say case manager, but you know, someone who's there to really help people through both before the class starts and after. So and obviously, I mean, you know how I feel about Nicole's teaching style and, you know, involvement. Obviously that goes without saying. Nicole, thank you. So I think those are the to me the highlights.
Colleen, if MACNY applies for that federal grant for direct entry, would conceivably there be money to kind of do that role that Franca is talking about to help guide students in?
Are we talking about the direct entry grant that just came out?
The DEPA, yeah.
So, MVCC and MACNY have already discussed. MVCC is going to take the lead on that grant for A2A.
Oh, for A2A, yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And you guys are going to apply for Real Life Rosies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Right now, my grant writer is going back and forth with New York State DOL to see if we are actually eligible. We're waiting on, although DOL told me that we are eligible, the way they wrote that, I'm not sure we're eligible.
Okay.
So we're having a little issue with that one right now, but we'll see. We'll see where it lands. It's early.
who's giving you crap?
The SAM system, the grants, what do you call it? Grants Gateway. So Grants Gateway, they're closing, but the way they wrote it, we cannot apply. So we can't get in. So my grant writer's fighting that one right now. So I'm just kind of watching emails fly.
All right, well, Dan Paris has been added to Chris's team. And I think to the extent that you know him or we need to get him involved, because he is very, I had an opportunity to chat with him about Rosie's and A2A and direct entry and all that stuff. And he might be able to shake something loose or at least figure something out. So if you want, you know, him, I would shoot him an email and tell him, you want to do this, we want to get this done, but we can't get into Grants Gateway. What's the deal? And let him do some background stuff.
Okay, that's a good idea. I was going to use Chris, but I wasn't. We'll use him as
Dan will make it happen faster. That's why I think what Dan was put there. So and he's aware of A2A. So and
what is Dan's new role, Pat? Does he have a title?
Well, he's they're using supervisor, but he's actually second. He's second to Chris.
Oh,
wow!
I didn't know that.
Right, he just happened.
Wow,
it just happened, and he is. Chris has chosen to stay on our state advisory committee, and asked that Dan be added, so that things can happen if we. So yeah, so that's why I'm thinking, raise it with Dan and see what that might do.
Wow, that's a great move for Dan Paris.
It is a great move for Dan Paris. That was my good news I wanted to share. It was I've been following up on the advisory committees that Chris was purposely said, I want to stay on, but I want you to add Dan Paris. And I had worked with Dan previously when I was in my former life with the direct support professional apprenticeship process. He it was the ATR in the CAP region, which is a very large region, nonetheless. And they to move him up there, I was like, whoa! I wasn't surprised because Dan is amazing. What also benefits us is that he is a parent of a child with a disability, so he has a sensitivity to this kind of a project being integrated with everything else. So very much will be a champion, I believe, for this kind of cause, and that's why Chris wanted him up there. I'm going to guess because he has initiatives that he has to pull off, especially with Executive Order 31. So labor is going to be in the hot seat for this, a lot of that stuff.
Colleen, just an FYI to you, he came before Mike Ferraro, who I'm
Okay.
sure with your conversations with Christine, he's more challenging to work with. Christine had it really good before Mike Ferraro came on board. So
I've got two questions. One is, do you feel like students needed to have more supports on board earlier, like OPWDD supports and Access VR supports, because some of them didn't even have supports yet? Would that have helped the process, the transition into the job part,
Yes.
or the continued looking for the job?
I think so. I think that, like, again, for me, there was only one student in particular who was not working with VR that absolutely needed to be. And I think that had that been in place on the front side, the process, these processes take time. The job coaching takes time. It's not an immediate, I send a referral and they get set up. So I think that if that were something done on the front end, it would help to make the student more successful. With that being said, though, thank goodness for Radar, because Radar has also provided us with case management services. So we get to triage. So even though these students may already have Access VR or whomever, they also have me, they also have the Radar case manager teams, but it's just different services. I'm not necessarily a case manager, and the Radar case management ends once they're employed. So I do think that is a very important piece, maybe to include in like the enrollment paperwork of the application in the beginning.
But we're not making it mandatory, right?
No, I certainly wouldn't make it mandatory by any means, because I think then that's discriminatory. You may have folks who don't need those services, and we certainly don't want to turn them away. However, if we have an individual that's maybe just struggling to fill out the paperwork, I think that's kind of a foundational sign that maybe this person, if they don't have additional supports in place, this might be a sign we want to get them hooked up so that they can be successful.
Did anybody take advantage of your benefit planning?
I did meet with Mark and discussed benefits advisement with both him and his mom.
Okay, so one. Okay, great.
Yes.
The other question I had was about
Can we pause? I want to finish this question before we move on. So in terms of the Access VR or OP services on the front end, if somebody does not have that service already and they don't have the support at home to hold their hand with that paperwork, that's my question. Like, what happens in that overlap?
I would like to propose that we, as we move forward, we look at, there are purposely people on our regional advisory boards, committees that are providers of case management, supported employment coaching, that we add to the equation for that discussion, whether or not there's any entity that would like to be considered a liaison to the students for just that kind of opportunity. They, each of them has, I'm going to believe that all of them that I'm aware of that are a part of our advisory committees are agencies that hold waiver and or CRS contracts. and might very much value being a resource to our students. So perhaps we also then prepare, Nicole, like you did for them, but being able to give them a list of the agencies that are ready to step up and help them if they need to. I'm sure you did that anyway, but being able to actually connect them. So Brandy, you get to do a soft handoff to someone, perhaps. I mean, maybe we could think some more about that, but we've got the resources in the committee on purpose, you know what I mean, to be able to learn about the program, but can we now see if any of them would like to step up and be a direct liaison to support services for the students? And then building, a sustainability process.
Isn't that the role of the CCOs?
That's what I'm saying. The CBOs, that's what I'm saying. Those agencies that are part of our committee, to actually ask them that question. So pose what you just asked, Brandy, and what's being discussed here to them in particular, as this was a challenge. People didn't do this and we're not making it mandatory. What do you think? Maybe one of them will step up and actually, or step forward, not step up, step forward and say, well, listen, you can just send them, all to us. I don't know if it would happen, but I mean, there's certainly a resource that we haven't tapped in that way. And hearing the challenge that's been presented, if we present that challenge during the Rochester and the Mohawk Valley, next committee meeting to say, this is what our instructor has shared with us, how would you react to that, and see what kind of reaction we get from them?
Yeah, I think it's something to put out there, but if I'm hearing you correctly, the suggestion is to see if a CCO agency is willing to support somebody with an application to OP or Access VR that's not on their roster.
Anything's possible.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
And not only CCOs, but actually the CBOs, the actual agencies themselves, to say, well, we'd be, I mean, maybe some of them any one of them might be willing to take that case management function in a different way. I mean, until we did this project, we didn't know about radar, right? So maybe there's something else that's cooking in an agency that we as a project team are not aware of. Maybe there isn't, but then at least we can say we asked the question, again, based on how we're supposed to be reporting back to the CDD, is promising practices, possibility, all that kind of, but then raising for them, what are the issues, right? And this would be an issue that they would have to consider if they're going to continue to try to build integrated community-based programs. Some piece of the action may be missing that needs to be built.
I would propose that we also ask OPWD and Access, because how are they making their services accessible if an individual can't fill out their form or their paperwork?
That was my thought exactly, Marilee. Yeah. If maybe, if we're doing an information session, similarly to how we did last time, like if you have a representative from Access VR there with applications, that maybe designates an extra, hour after the information session to stay and help individuals complete applications or understand applications, and at least be a point of contact for them following up, moving forward. I think if Access VR is already involved, I think it might be, the path of least resistance.
And we did, Brandy and Marilee, and we made a great presentation to the folks that are overseeing SWITSI, and at the end of that conversation, right, Marilee, Brandy, Ceylon was quite interested in learning more and following up on the project. So here's maybe the perfect opportunity to share these pluses and minuses and challenge them to say, okay, since you're interested, how about?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So this is about, like, if we know ahead of time that they're interested in part-time work, how do we, is there a way, Colleen, that we can look for employers who are also offering part-time work?
So Summer, feel free to chime in, but I have yet to find a manufacturer who's willing to take people on for production roles that is part-time. It might be that this is just not the industry for it, but Summer, you're more familiar with the area. I just haven't found one in Mohawk Valley, but I'd be happy to reach out if anyone has suggestions.
And even if they're just
Yeah.
entry level roles, so they offered Jaden part-time work. It wasn't maybe on the manufacturing backside, but it was maybe in
Right,
the
and
office.
and it was like an internship, from my understanding. So it
Oh, it
was,
wasn't paid?
I'm sure they're gonna pay him, but it's, you know, it
Hey,
wasn't like a
Colleen.
production role full time. Yeah,
Colleen, can I don't know who has access to prior apprentices, but at one point we had an apprentice whose name was Justin Medina.
I know
And
who
he,
you're talking about. Yeah.
do you know him? Okay. So he worked for a company in, I think it was in Rome. I want to say maybe they had 10 employees. And the company makes, it's like they make the foam that goes in bumpers and airbag things for Volvo. They also do pads for the NFL. But it literally is like there's nothing fancy about it. But I just remember that they were really they just were so open to working with a young person who was really trying to kind of make their way. I can't remember what the name of it is, but I know you'll be able to look it up and find out where
Yeah.
he worked. They were desperate for apprentices. He would have, you know, but he said, I'm just a little guy. I'm not fancy. And a lot of people like look at me and go, yeah, I don't want to work there. Like your break room is where the owner of the company, his wife, and the other 7 people that work here all go into it. Like it's just a little kind of warehouse thing. But he was very not only was he very accommodating, but I thought that there was a lot of individual attention because it was such a small place. So that I don't know, worth a try is someplace to look for.
I'm just looking
that-
right now for
And
where
that
he
kind of
was.
goes along with
CI.
That's it. Yep.
that kind of follows along with job development. Usually you find jobs in small to medium companies rather than extremely large ones. It's just easier to work with people rather than the corporation sides.
I know
think-
for the apprenticeship program, though, I think the minimum that we found out was 28 hours for an IMT a week, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think the important thing to keep in mind, if this is going to be an advance to apprenticeship program, apprenticeships are full-time positions. So if we're going to reach our goals of putting individuals into apprenticeships, these individuals should want to have a full-time job. And obviously we can develop those supports so that that's possible for them. But ideally, if they want to go through this program, that should be their goal. And maybe if it's someone who wants a part-time position, there's a different program that would be a better fit for them.
I appreciate that perspective, Summer, because yes, most of them did want part-time. However, I think if this is something like we recognize as an area of opportunity going forward, then maybe that's the discussion to have, as the Advanced to Apprenticeship program is intended for individuals that are seeking full-time work. And then we can talk about how the apprenticeship model is based off of full-time employment. Is that 28 hours or more or 30 hours or more?
Needs to be, and that's only for the IMT apprenticeship. I think that's the only one that has that kind of flexibility.
Yeah. It's a
And
28. Yeah.
yeah, 28 is the minimum. So I'd be nervous if, if that's like
Yeah.
So
the typical schedule, because, if they drop below an average of 28 hours.
I understand.
Yeah.
So I guess my thought was that we need to be working towards full-time employment. I 100% agree with that. But 0 to 90 is sometimes a little bit more than some of these individuals can handle right off the bat. So finding an employer who's willing to let someone ease into that full-time employment space, that's why I was suggesting like the company I did, because I feel like there's a little bit of flexibility. If he got somebody that would work 4 hours a day, for the first 10 weeks and then maybe go to 5. And then, so there's that progression of feeling more confident in having the capacity to work full-time. Because I do think that whether it's true or not, I think a lot of the people that we see are under the impression that either they shouldn't or they can't. And both are not correct, but there needs to be a little bit more, I guess acknowledgement on our part that it might be advantageous to try and ease in as opposed to push off the cliff, if that makes sense to people.
Another question too, because we asked Chris Pinheiro this question about part-time, and he said there's no rule about apprenticeships being full-time. Like they can be part-time. There's just there's like a worker's protection so that you don't underpay somebody for a long period of time. Did I get that right, Pat?
Yeah,
Um,
that's
No,
what
so
he said.
I remember when we had this discussion, the other point that Chris made was that, there's a time period in which you're able to complete your apprenticeship.
Right.
There's a minimum amount of hours in which you have to reach for on-the-job training in that time period. And when we worked it worked out to 28 hours for an IMT. But the longer range apprenticeships were going to have to be pretty much full-time in order for someone to complete their apprenticeship in the time that they had. Because if I have an apprentice who goes over, if they're in their apprenticeship and they go over like 6 months more than they're supposed to, then I'm going to have questions from the Department of Labor about that. And why aren't we exiting that person and why aren't they progressing?
Is that
So
a system question we need to ask at a state level? Like, is that a federal guideline or a state guideline about the?
No, it's a federal guideline, I think.
I think in this situation, the next step would be to maybe have a few discussions with employers to see if maybe they'd be willing to create more flexible job opportunities for individuals who might need to utilize those opportunities with the goal of one day maybe entering an apprenticeship.
Yes.
That makes sense, Summer. I mean, because we're not going to change a federal rule. An apprenticeship has been around since Renaissance. So taking that on is much more than this project might be able to accomplish. But doing what Summer just said, to use the conversation about pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship to look at how do you diversify your workforce so it includes people who weren't traditionally thinking about manufacturing as a career path, and we can get you a workforce. And then if they're still thinking that apprenticeship is good for them, then we go there. But at least we got them a good paying job on a career path in an industry that has not been tapped before. And that's a major win for everybody in that respect, I think. So I vote that idea. So
I just want to be like realistic about it too, at the same time that, talking to a lot of these employers, you can't even get them to change their shifts to match the bus schedule. It's like ridiculous.
good point. No, you're right.
You're right. Yes, it's something to push for, but we also have to be realistic at the same time. And I think we do need to be honest with the individuals who enter the program that the vast majority of jobs that are available are full-time jobs. Is that okay with you? We can work with you on your benefits issues, because I know sometimes it's just not affordable for an individual to work full-time, and that's really sad. But at the end of the day, we have to, live in reality and try to make it work as best we can for everybody.
Agreed. Colleen, did you attend the American Apprenticeship webinar yesterday about like the CTE apprenticeships?
No, we had some other individuals at MACNY attend that, but I had some meetings, so I couldn't go.
Okay, so just I think it's stuff that we need to start being aware of, is that they just created a CTE apprenticeship. And again, these are all the new regulations that are in the hopper. This is like the 30-day review period, people comment, things like that, and then they're going to go back and formalize the new regulations. But one of the things that they have is this CTE apprenticeship, where students are only going to be required to do 900 hours as opposed to 2,000 hours. It does not result in a journey worker certificate. It results in a certificate of completion, but the certificate of completion can then be applied towards the next like apprenticeship. So,
Mhm.
or they can continue and finish the one they're in. So there's some new things that are coming that I think are responses to the things that we're discussing right now, that sometimes it's, you know, it's a student, sometimes it's a disability, sometimes, but there has to be a little more flexibility baked into the system somewhere to allow individuals who do have these kinds of challenges to be able to come in at some point and get credit for the work they're doing. So just for us, it's just an FYI to kind of think about that these are things that are in the hopper right now.
Mhm.
That's great to know.
So I do want to talk about, I think one of the issues we had with our first pilot in Mohawk Valley was recruitment. It was difficult to find individuals, and I know we want to be inclusive of everyone, so individuals with or without disabilities, and
Right.
maybe thinking about changing the marketing a little bit, who we're marketing the program to, just so we get more individuals to join.
I agree with that. I know when we first got Radar, obviously Radar is a disability grant and we were so excited about that. So we put disability on everything and
Yep.
quickly learned that a lot of people did not understand what that word meant today. So a lot of people were not even interested in working with our program or applying for our program because they didn't have or they didn't understand what the word disability encompasses now. So we actually took the word disability off of the majority of our marketing, and we just kind of market it as an apprenticeship opportunity. And then when the individual comes to us, at least in our case, they have to have a disability. So we show them the long list and we say, is there any chance you've ever had anything on this list? But in the case of A2A, if it's inclusive to both, then maybe a small discussion can just be had that says we're inclusive to working with individuals with disabilities, but maybe not be as heavy on the marketing in the case that it would deter people from who don't believe that they have one.
And or not interested in disclosing even if they do,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's the other side of this. There's so much energy being put forth, especially on a peer support side of life, which there's a lot of emphasis from the Office of Mental Health to teach and get more people involved in employment. So interesting dynamic. Yep.
And Franca's not on, right? She dropped.
She had to take another call, but she's not off. She's just off right now. So
Colleen,
did
do you know?
talk to her
Sorry.
I did talk to her about the website and for like changing it. She said she was open to doing that. So I think that's like one of the recommendations we should make, is that we market it more broadly to everyone. And God knows if you'd have to be perfect to not have something on Summer's list.
yeah, right.
We don't have
Like,
a
I
problem
think,
getting people enrolled.
yeah.
Every one of
So-
us on this call would be able to be supported by Radar is what it's coming
Yeah.
down to.
Yeah. So I'm not too worried about funding, I guess, for it. I think for Radar's purposes, I think we can make the vast majority of individuals who do join eligible for the funding. I know for Rosie's, I think did we have 100%?
Yeah, no
support?
one ever says no, because they just read the list and they don't have to state what it is. They just say yes or no. And they know that that's how they're getting funded. So, we haven't run into any roadblocks with any of the Rosies yet.
Cool. Back on that list of things that worked and that Mohawk Valley Community College was willing to accept the funding levels and make their budget work based on what Radar was offering us. I think that should go on the record of, you know, for the college, and they're willing to be accessible. So
I had another question for Colleen, and that was like having some outcome goals. And I thought it was really interesting, you know, we had a short conversation about like, what's the difference with your outcome goals with employment versus apprenticeship? And it seems like it takes longer for people to get into apprenticeship. So is it possible to help us to develop outcome goals that are reasonable?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our pilot, I think we do need to make changes to the way the program ran last time, and I think we're on track for that, like the curriculums revamped, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I, I think we can set some reasonable goals, and we should probably align them with the radar grants, and that's the funding source, right? So
Yeah.
I think
um,
a misconception that we ran into with cohort 1 was that upon completion, they would directly enter an apprenticeship. And in most cases, that's not the case. They start in a traditional full-time job and they have to more or less prove to the employer that they are a candidate for an apprenticeship. Because the employer is making an investment in them once they do become an apprentice in a lot of cases. So I think the first and foremost goal is just to get them employment, and hopefully it would be in a position that is apprenticeable.
and I would say like I maybe follow up for a year, see who actually enters an apprenticeship, because it does take time. Some employers go by cohorts too, so they're not starting apprentices once, one or two at a time. Sometimes you're starting 12 at a time, and you're going to have to wait 6 months to get into that program. So
That makes sense.
What else we got?
All righty, we've been jumping a little with the way the agenda was, so I'm trying to make the stuff fit in here. So in terms of continuing the conversation about next cohort, so we definitely know we want to look at recruitment differently, in terms of marketing, and I hear, wording with on flyers, but in terms of marketing to the who, any suggestions about that piece, about how else we can broadly
yeah,
reach people in your area?
I think that taking advantage of like BOCES programs would be great. These areas in which you have adults that are really looking to upskill or get into higher education. I think BOCES would be a really good way. And it also kind of will bridge the gap and get them into the college, which I think is also another benefit. Obviously, we've been using the circulating the flyer within the Workforce Development Board. We were just, Summer and I both were talking about it at our Herkimer County resource meeting. So we're just continuing to get it out there as much as we can. I will have some flyers printed out and left here at the Career Center. So I think just kind of like getting it out. I definitely think that we were very heavily relying on like VR agencies to provide us with a streamline of candidates. And I don't know that that's necessarily like sustainable. So I think just taking advantage of the resources that we have within, each one of us and our organizations would be tremendously beneficial.
I would also like to recommend, I know we had the first B2B, but whether or not we can have another one on campus. And that's something maybe Franca does on a regular basis anyway. Colleen, I don't know, does she bring businesses to the campus to just talk about, what the classes are and the trainings and, advisory? I mean, I know most BOCES, as you're pointing out, Nicole, have business advisory boards to actually help them, figure out a curriculum and that kind of stuff. So is there a way we can push in for the businesses? But also, I think just where I'm going with this is that people don't know how cool it is to work for manufacturers. So how are we actually, are you, like talking, did something happen in the Mohawk Valley that talks to the value of manufacturers as employers? You know what I mean? And just opening that whole spectrum of it's a good job. You know what I mean? To work for a manufacturer. I don't know how that's done. Does MACNY do that at all for them, or is that more a labor Department of Labor thing that has to happen, Summer and Nicole, does the Workforce Center actually host a manufacturing day? And you can come and interview for jobs or learn about jobs in manufacturing, just to have a manufacturing day. Because the people with disabilities that are more involved, need more case management and that kind of stuff that we were talking about earlier. I don't believe that manufacturing's on their list of anything that they even think about. So if there's not something that allows them to learn about it, their own community-based agency that's helping them do that. But they might say to us, well, how do we learn about manufacturing? Because most of the job coaches or the supervisors don't have anybody in their lives per se that have ever worked for a manufacturing company would even know where to start.
Mhm.
So, just putting out flyers is just that for me. It's just putting out flyers. If I don't know what it means to work in a people didn't know that an industrial bakery is considered a manufacturer when I talk to people. I didn't know that a brewery was, you know what I mean? And so, whoa, wait, I could help make beer. That's pretty cool. Or I could help make bread. That's pretty cool. That's a manufacturing. They see it more on that industrial, the old time stuff that they get taught, in school from the, the industrial age when they learn it in social studies, that kind of stuff.
So the
I
one
mean,
issue
go
that we
ahead.
kind of run into is finding a captured audience to do that with. And it
Uh-huh.
has been done commonly with high school students. So they will have like a trades day or a manufacturing day, or even just like a career exploration day. I know, I think it was this fall, they took buses of high school students over to SUNY Poly, and they had a ton of employers come in and speak and do kind of like little career exploration things with the students. That was really successful. And I know even more recently with Real Life Rosies, they started talking to the high school seniors to have them start thinking about employment after graduation. So that's a direct way that we can find a captured audience. Specifically when we met with the Real Life Rosies, even though it was for women, there were plenty of men that snuck into that. And I don't know if it was to get out of class or it was because they were really interested, but
To get out of
Or
class.
that the room was full
Also
of,
hang out with
people
their
that they were
girlfriends.
also interested in. So
yeah.
No, and MACNY doesn't, we host manufacturing day. I mean, it's turned into manufacturing week, manufacturing month.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's hundreds and hundreds of students that we touch every year and get into manufacturing facilities and host career exploration events and all those types of things in the school district. So that's definitely something that, we expand upon every year. And I wish that we could, get into the brains of every single person in the area and talk to them about
Mhm.
manufacturing. But the reality is, it's a long slog and a lot of people, and
But,
you just
but
try to
maybe one
expand
of
upon it every year.
one of our targets though with this project, Brandy, would be to actually make sure that prior to when that's happening, invite the CSEs to a 1-hour webinar or meeting about the world of manufacturing, and that this is coming up, and we want you to be aware of it. Because I would suggest to you that any of you that have ever dealt with special ed know there's a pattern of behavior. And unless something major interrupts that pattern, they're just working on rote and writing plans and putting things in there and not necessarily exploring stuff. And it's not till some really cool something happens that they change up the way they do business. So if you've got that date already set, Kyle, for the region, then maybe we could get that information out to our advisory committee and then ask them to get it to the CSEs. You know what I mean? So it's on a calendar weeks before it's going to happen. Otherwise it won't get introduced to them. They just won't do it. So
I think one bridge that we can make with that group is that the teachers are constantly asking us, well, what academic level? What skills do they need? And so I think we need to give them a response at some level. We need to either say it's a reading level of X or a math level of X, or you have to do this type of skill, which is probably preferable, right?
right. So
You have to
talk
be
their
able to
language.
measure.
Talk their language. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But
We'll get that then. We'll
Okay.
do the great, yeah. That's easy enough, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I had another, I know we are past, but I had one more idea, and that was Nicole. Is it possible to use the workforce to look for part-time jobs that are already in your system that may be manufacturing? And it looks
We could
for-
definitely, I can touch base with my business services representative and see if she's aware of any existing partnerships with agencies in manufacturing that may have part-time. Yes, that's definitely something I can do.
Well, and not even partnerships, but flying jobs.
Well, but I thought I heard us say that we were also going to try to look at part-time to full-time, meaning that their flexibility. So it isn't just a solid part-time, but also they're willing, as Colleen was suggesting, going to a full-time type thing.
I don't know that you'd find that information in a database.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have built a list of all of the employers that we know of in the area pretty much. So we can send that along, and we can also reach out to them, but I just also want to preface, as far as, because we run into this on our end a lot, there's the possibility of finding part-time positions in manufacturing is just really, really slim.
Well, yep.
And if it's something that is there, those positions have probably been filled pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's just, we can definitely look into that and share that information, but I kind of just want to piggyback off of what Colleen said earlier again, is the likelihood is going to be, it's something that's probably more down the road than it is immediate,
Okay.
at least in this area.
No,
Yeah,
and
I
I
feel
think
like
you
it's like
find
a
it
long-term project to like try and get employers to change their shifts. Like,
Yeah.
you know, some of them, they're like, no, it's 12 hours. You know, you can do the day shift or the night shift, and you have to start on the night shift. And it's like, what about people with kids? You talk to them to the
doesn't matter.
blue in the ear to blue in the face,
Yeah.
and they just won't
Yep.
change. And they'll complain about how they can't find people. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk out of both sides of their mouth, unfortunately, and that it's not. And forgive me, it's not just manufacturers that are having the same kind of conversation. They're just, you know, I've found in conversations where there are the people that are organizing things are of a younger cohort, age wise, and part of the company. They're open. They're not changing, but they're open to a conversation of looking at things differently. So. Okay. I
All right.
apologize. I
To
have to
be-
jump for
Yeah,
something
and to
else.
be mindful, the last thing on that agenda was about the dates. So the dates of the next cohort are set for August 8th through June 30th.
April 8th.
Definitely
Thank you.
April.
Thank you.
The other A month.
I was
Definitely
like, wait a
April,
second.
not August.
Okay.
April 8th to June 30th.
And
All right.
and B2B in Rochester is on the
24th,
at what time?
2:30.
2:30.
Can
So
you
I don't have.
send that to me, Brandy, the flyer? I don't have that.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the update. So I had sent it out and asked for suggestions, and then this is
The final.
the next draft that I did. I added the no cost to students and then $200 stipend. Program
Good.
completion based on eligibility, really small. There's nothing, I mean, well, yeah. So I will send it to you. I'll send it to
you.
everyone on this meeting. Anything else? I know we're over.
No, but do you need anything from me, Brandy, for B2B with Delmonico's, or is everything all set?
I think we're set. Did you
Okay.
decide whether you were coming or not?
It really just depends on your funky weather. That's all.
Oh, okay, understandable.
Forgive me, I am a weather weenie, and I'm
no.
proud of it. So
So am I.
okay, so if it's lightly snowing, I'm fine. But if you're gonna get what Buffalo got, I will see you later. So I'm not coming.
Sayonara. I gotcha. Okay.
All right, goody. So
Well, thank
I'll
you,
I'll
everybody.
talk to you offline from that. We did get quite a few people from the advisory committees, at least on the state side. I haven't gotten really anything back on the regional, so I'll be resending. I had given them till like the deadline for the 12th of filling out the demographics which was just last week. So I will follow up this week to see what I can get. But the state agencies are responding very proudly and energetically about the project and the idea of apprenticeship. So just wanted to throw in that other positive for you to add to the thing that we definitely have a state that's paying attention to what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Bye. Summer, I sent you that stuff, so take a look and let me know because it's due next week.
Okay, I'll take a look today. Thank you.
Okay, honey. Bye-bye.